It was a day like any other, or so I thought. I had just returned from the grocery store, the trunk of my car still half full, when the knock came. 2 police officers stood on my doorstep. Their presence alone sent a chill down my spine. I hadn't done anything wrong, yet there they were, eyes serious, asking me questions I couldn't immediately process. "Sir, we need to talk to you about a child found in your vehicle." I blinked, confused. "What child?" My voice cracked slightly, partly from nerves and partly from not understanding what they meant. They explained that a little boy had been found alone in the back seat of my car, scared but unharmed. I was stunned. My heart dropped into my stomach. "That's not possible," I insisted. "I don't have any children." But the look on their faces said otherwise. They weren't there by mistake. As the chaos unfolded and I tried to understand what was happening, memories from my past started rising to the surface like unwanted ghosts. 2 years ago, my world quietly fell apart. My partner and I didn't end with screaming or dramatic exits. It was silence that destroyed us. The kind that eats away at you slowly until there's nothing left. I had poured everything I had into that relationship, let my dreams gather dust so hers could shine. I thought that was love, sacrificing so she could thrive. But I realize now, I mistook self-erasure for devotion. She pursued her career relentlessly, and I became the constant shadow in the background. Always there, always dependable, always forgotten. I gave up job offers, moved cities, missed chances to grow, all because I believed that supporting her meant we'd succeed together. But I was wrong. While I stood still, she kept walking, and eventually she walked away from me. The final blow came when I found out she'd been cheating. I remember the numbness more than the rage. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stopped feeling anything. That discovery became the trigger. I filed for divorce and left behind everything I had built with her. Or so I thought. So imagine my shock when I found out that the child in my car, left there by her current boyfriend while he ran errands, was someone who called me Daddy. Didn't make sense. The child wasn't mine. We'd been separated for 2 years. Yet the little boy had looked up at the officers and said, "My daddy will come back." He meant me. Somehow, in all this confusion, I was the person he clung to for comfort. I hadn't seen him in months, maybe longer, but something about me had stuck with him. And something about him hit me harder than I was ready for. I sat in my apartment that night, the police having left after determining I wasn't responsible for leaving the child there. But the image of him stayed with me. His tiny fingers clutching the sleeve of my jacket, the way his voice trembled when he said my name. It all broke something open inside me that I had long tried to keep sealed. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I thought about the past. About the moments when that boy had been in our lives. He wasn't mine, but I had read him bedtime stories, cleaned up his spilled cereal, bandaged his scraped knees. I had been there in all the quiet, ordinary ways. And somehow in his heart that had meant something. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just some accident. This was a child left in a dangerous situation by people who were supposed to care for him. His mother had changed. She wasn't the person I had once known. And the man she was with now had left a child alone in a vehicle like he was baggage. I couldn't unsee that. I couldn't pretend it didn't matter. So I made a decision. I called a lawyer and filed for emergency guardianship. It was a long shot, I knew that. I wasn't his biological father. But I also knew no one else was fighting for him. And someone had to. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I was shaking. Not from nerves for myself, but for what it would mean for him if I failed. She showed up late, looking disheveled and distracted. Her explanations were half-baked. Her boyfriend didn't even show. The judge asked me why I wanted guardianship. I told the truth. I'm not his father by blood, but I've been more of a father to him than anyone else in his life. I won't let him be forgotten. I won't let him feel unloved. There was silence in the courtroom for a moment that felt like a lifetime. Then the judge granted me temporary custody. When we got home that night, he looked at me with those same wide eyes. "Daddy, are we going to live here now?" This time it didn't hurt, it felt right. I smiled, knelt down, and pulled him into my arms. Yes, buddy. This is home now. Since then, my life has changed in ways I never imagined. I've traded in quiet evenings for bedtime routines, laughter, spilled juice, and endless questions. And I wouldn't change a thing. Every "I love you, Daddy," every hand reaching for mine, has stitched together the broken parts of who I used to be. I didn't just save him. He saved me too. He gave me purpose again. Gave me a reason to wake up with hope instead of regret. And in the process, I've become someone I can finally be proud of. I may not have planned this life, but I found something better than I ever hoped for. Found my son. There were moments, especially in those first few weeks, when I doubted myself. Parenting isn't something you just step into seamlessly, especially when the child isn't your own by blood and your life has been shaped by betrayal and grief. I'd stare at his tiny shoes by the door, feel the pressure of doing everything right, and wonder, am I enough? But then there were the quiet victories. The first time he ran into my arms after a bad dream and whispered, "You make me feel safe." The first drawing he brought home from school, a crayon picture of the two of us, with the words "Me and Dad" scrawled underneath. The way he smiled when I remembered to pack an extra juice box in his lunch, or when I cheered the loudest at his preschool play. Every one of those moments erased a little more of the pain I carried. Not overnight. Not without effort. But steadily, like sunlight pushing away a long, cold shadow. I began building a new routine. Not the old one that revolved around someone else's dreams, but one shaped around both our needs. We'd eat pancakes on Saturdays and dance in the kitchen while they cooked. We'd spend Sundays at the park, him on the swings, me pushing and laughing. I started seeing a therapist too, not just for me but because I wanted to be a better version of myself for him. I also started documenting everything. The custody paperwork, the texts from his mother when she actually responded, the medical visits, the school reports. I wasn't naive. I knew that temporary custody could be challenged, and I needed to be ready if it ever came to that. And it did. A few months later she came back, suddenly and without warning, wanting him back. Her lawyer argued that she had restructured her life, and was prepared to be a full-time parent again. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about the child. It was about control, image, maybe even guilt. We were back in court again. And this time I brought everything. Witnesses. Documentation. My lawyer spoke with clarity and evidence. I spoke with my heart. When the judge turned to ask the boy who he wanted to stay with, his little voice was clear. "I want to stay with Daddy." My throat tightened, my eyes burned. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look to anyone else for permission. He just knew where home was, and it was with me. That day, the judge granted me full legal guardianship. It wasn't the fairy tale ending people dream of. There were no grand celebrations, no balloons or parties. Just the two of us, walking out of the courthouse hand in hand. But to me, that simple moment meant everything. It was the beginning of something real. Something chosen not by blood but by love and commitment. As the years passed, we grew together. I watched him grow into a curious, kind-hearted, bright boy who asked endless questions and believed superheroes were real. I took pride in teaching him how to tie his shoes, how to be honest even when it was hard, and how to treat others with kindness, even when life had been unkind. And slowly I began to heal too. I stopped thinking of myself as someone who had been abandoned or betrayed. I was no longer the man left behind. I was the man who showed up, who stayed, who loved unconditionally even when it wasn't required. I realized that being a father isn't about biology. It's about presence, about sacrifice, about choosing to show up when it's easier to walk away. One evening while we were watching cartoons, he leaned against me, his head resting on my arm. "I'm glad you're my dad," he said. I looked down at him, my heart full. "I'm glad you're my son." And I meant every word. Because somewhere between the pain and the rebuilding, I found something I never expected. Peace, purpose, and a love more powerful than anything I had lost. This wasn't the life I had planned. It's better.